Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Palace podcast brought to you by the Global Sports Podcast Network. I am your host today, Dan Tanner, and I'm joined by long-suffering Daily Palace podcast co-host, Wale. Are you all right, mate? It's been a little while since we've done a podcast together, man.
Was it? Yeah, it's been about 2-3 weeks now, yeah?
Something like that. It's been a while.
Yeah, how you doing, Paul? Sometimes these things just fly by so quickly, and I was thinking, has it really been 2 weeks? But yeah, I think I've been on with Joe and Alex mostly in the last weeks. Yeah, that's all right. Anyway, I'm all right. Great to be on the pod tonight, especially after a fantastic win during the weekend. So I'm buzzing to go.
Yeah, and on that segue, that's going to be one of our first topics today, is reviewing the fixture on the weekend against Fulham, which, if you didn't know, we won 2-0. And we're also going to talk about the man of the match performance, Will Hughes, and his constant comparisons to Iniesta and Xavi. Are they warranted, or is it just Twitter being Twitter again? And then finally, we are going to talk about the Palace record of four consecutive away wins on the bounce, 5 in a row, including an FA Cup game. So, which I know might not be a brilliant sort of a world record or anything like that, but for Palace, that's a pretty big deal. But we'll get to that later. So, to start off with, as this is the Monday review show, we're going to review the weekend's fixture against Fulham, which, as I've said earlier, was a 2-0 victory. Rather sort of classic Palace first half, fairly slow build-up, couple of decent chances, wasn't overly exciting, very dull, as usual Palace, with a couple of long shots from Eze and a couple of decent shots from Mateta. Then we got a gift from our ex-defender, Anderson, with an own goal, which was assisted by Will Hughes. And then Munoz gets a second goal, sort of fairly late into the second half. So, Wale, what were kind of your impressions of the game? Did you like the game? Did you see the game, etc.? What were your general impressions of the game on the weekend?
Well, it was typical Palace away performance. Is what we've come to expect every time Palace are away in the Premier League at the moment. And what was particularly nice about this victory over Fulham was the fact that they also beat Palace at Selhurst at a time when Palace were beginning to get back in form, and they just came and put a dampener, on the run of form Palace were on at that time. So it's nice that Palace got one back over on them. Also, the fact that there were so many amazing performances by so many players. It wasn't a situation of particular players did well and some players were, maybe not up to par. It was the whole team working for themselves. Palace always a threat, on the attack. The defense seemed assured a lot of times. Yes, Fulham had the overall possession in the game, but even they knew that every time Palace had the ball, they were decisive and smooth, and they carried a lot of threat. It's quite similar to what we saw with Man City, Liverpool yesterday. City dominating play, although of course Fulham couldn't have dominated play as much as City did. But every time Liverpool had the ball, City knew they were in trouble, and they just had to be careful. And that was exactly what it was with Fulham. In that game against Palace, amazing performance. I particularly loved when Jean-Philippe Mateta took on a couple of players, beat them, and just went on that run towards goal. That is not something you get from him every time. So when he did that, I thought, these guys are playing on another level at the moment. The confidence level is really high. Although yes, the form hasn't translated to the home games, but just as Glasner said, speaking ahead of the game against Aston Villa, saying if Palace, on top of the away form, win every home game as well, Palace will be top of the league, and that maybe not exactly top, but will be around that place. It's the Premier League. It's difficult, sometimes you're on a good run of form, you play at home, and then some teams come and then get the result against you. But the result against Fulham was good on all front. Players, performing well. Munoz's goal was fantastic. It was an unexpected angle, and you have to be on a very high level of confidence to try that out, especially as a wing back. It's all right when you find, Anthony Isak or Salah or Erling Haaland trying that, but when you find Munoz trying that, then it has to be on some huge level of confidence, quite similar to the goal scored by the shotman, the United defender against Liverpool the other time, the Argentine. I can't remember his name now. I don't like him much. Anyway, but it just tells you that the team is on some great run of confidence. Eze was playing at a level that we know, although it's been a bit inconsistent. It's played like that in some games and haven't got into that level. But against Fulham, everyone was just at it, and particularly because Fulham, dared to go to Selhurst and get a victory. It was really nice that they also lost at home to Palace.
Yeah, I couldn't disagree with you more. It was very much a full team performance. Everybody did their job as they were expected. There were no real weak links. It was nearly all the highlights from sort of the Sky Sports ones are all Palace. It's almost like Fulham didn't show up, which is very weird because if you look at the stats, it was all like for the first 15, 20 minutes, half an hour, it was almost all Fulham doing most of the work, for some reason, they just didn't show up, which is very surprising because they were on a fairly decent run of form themselves, especially at home, which was even more surprising because they had the crossover with the Fulham team a couple of days earlier. And we were very much sort of, this is going to be a fairly tight match because it's Palace that have a really good away form and Fulham having a really sort of good home form. So it could have been a little bit closer, but just Palace just turned up. I don't know what suddenly happened since essentially the end of December, but we're cooking now, which is good to see. We're not having these depressing podcasts of, oh look, we've lost again, we lost 1-0. No, we're hyped.
Well,
we're getting going.
We had one last week.
Yeah, we had one. Oh yeah, I was the one that had to do that one. That was, oh my god. Oh, that was an embarrassing one to talk about. Oh, gee. But good. No, we put that one to side. That one doesn't exist. That one didn't happen. Right. I think that's not a bad place to finish talking about the Fulham game for now. We'll probably come back to it a couple more times. But we'll take a quick break to thank our sponsor, Bioniq. And we'll be back after this short break.
Your body is unique, and Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bioniq, the world's most personalised supplements. Bioniq provide 100% tailor-made supplements designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right level to optimise your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN2025 for 40% off your first month's subscription. Bioniq. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now.
And welcome back to the Daily Palace podcast, brought to you by the Global Sports Podcast Network. I'm still your host today, Dan Tanner, and I'm still joined by Wale. So, Wale, we're now going to talk about the man of the match performance, Will Hughes, who has been, yet again, since the Man City game, being compared to the greats like Iniesta and Xavi, which I'm just got to be saying, it's like, I think it's a little bit presumptuous. He's on a great run of form, especially when a this podcast has really stuck it to him at the beginning of the season, and we're very sort of like questioning why he was still around, etc. But now he's like one of our better players. He's driving the play forwards, which is sort of wasn't really his game, really. But I think the more telling sort of side of his game at the moment is his set pieces, the corner taking, which haven't seen in a long time a Palace player that effective as a corner taker. Probably not just Palace, but in the Premiership, it's been a long time since a sort of player can kind of be that effective. So, Wale, what are your kind of how are you feeling about Will Hughes at the moment? Do you think this praise is a bit much, or do you think it's somewhat warranted? So, yeah, what are you thinking about Hughes at the moment?
Firstly, I should put it out there. It was the trio of you, Alex, and Finn who were really hard on him at the start of the season. I was never part of it. I was
we
never
are the
part
Palace
of it.
fans, so
I was never part of it.
We are the Palace fans, so yeah.
But it's deserved all the praises I'm getting in the last couple of games. Although I wouldn't go as much as Iniesta and Xavi as a lot of guys on Twitter I've put it. But I won't blame them, because there was a time I said on this pod that I compared Adam Wharton to Xavi Alonso, but I think you get in those moments sometimes and you just say things. But I mentioned last week when Joe was talking to me about the choice between Hughes or Lemma, and because we were talking about Watson coming back into the team and then saying if there was going to be a partner for Watson, and I said, look, on the form that he is at the moment, it's definitely Will Hughes. Is playing so great at the moment. Reminds me of the Will Hughes I knew at that starting derby, because I remember there was a particular season of course, I pay a lot of attention to the championship, but there was a season when Derby nearly, maybe they go into the playoff places and lost, or nearly go into the playoff places. But Will Hughes was, he just stood out for that team, and he was an amazing talent. That was before the move to Watford. He did do a couple of things at Watford. It was difficult for the team. Considering the level they were against all the other sides in the EPL. But since he's come to Palace, he's somewhat tried to get back to the class that we know he can get to. But it's always difficult when the entire team is lacking confidence, when the results are not going good. It's quite easy for players of the bottom half clubs, so to speak, to kind of lose confidence and then go on this run of poor performances. And that was somewhat what happened with Will Hughes at the start of the season. It wasn't just him; it was a lot of players that were not at the level that we know they can get to. Although he was, it wasn't helped by the goal of the season candidate as a free kick that he, made sure that wasn't, a goal eventually. And then some of the chances he gave away in the early games when Palace were not doing great. But in the last couple of weeks, it's just been super amazing for Palace. He's been putting in the crunching tackles, doing so great with set pieces, as you mentioned. Luka Miljelovic, I always struggle to call the name, was
we used to just call him Luca. It was easier to say.
Was a set piece specialist for Palace, and he was so great at it. Whipping the balls in the box, and of course, it was great at the penalties and the free kicks and all. And his corners are. It's almost like he's been watching clips, from the Serb, and I don't know. I was reading some of the. I can't remember which forum it was, but I was reading some of the comments after the game, and someone said, "I don't know what Glasner's put in the coffee user's been drinking in the last couple of weeks, but it's just great at the moment. Is putting in the crunching tackles, starting off attacks, is being that link between defense and attack." and it just looks like he is said to himself, "I've had enough of this poor run of form, and I'm going to just enjoy my game and enjoy the games that I play." And he's just been doing that. Against Fulham, it was another fantastic performance. Took the corner well that led to the Anderson goal, and then it was just phenomenal in other parts of the game. I think at the end of the day, it helps a lot when results are going your way and everyone's the confidence in the team is somewhat higher than what it used to be. We can see Hughes, yeah, is on a different level, but you can see that for so many of the Palace players, they're taking things on that they normally wouldn't do. They are, the wingers and the fullbacks don't mind going 1v1 against defenders. Munoz doesn't mind, going for the tight angle. Mateta doesn't mind, taking on 2, 3 players and going on a mazy run. Eze, back to what we know he's able to do when it looks like he's going to pass, drops the shoulder, feints, comes back, takes a shot. So you can see that the confidence level in the team is at a good moment. Yes, we will continue to talk about not transforming the form, to home games, but with the home games, you can't necessarily say the performances have been poor. The loss against Everton was particularly painful, but you can't necessarily say that the form at home. I mean, the performances at home have been poor. It's just been lack of luck, and then some of these teams doing great. Brentford the other day were great. So it is just a good time for the boys. He's particularly having a great moment, and yes, I would maybe mention some other names when you talk comparisons. Maybe just not Iniesta and Xavi at the moment, but I really wish he was still 22 and there's still about 10 years of this to come, but is really doing great at the moment.
Yeah, because he's coming to, I think it's a contract year. It's either this year or next year. So he's definitely playing to get a contract extension. And on this form, I'm considering would be definitely considering giving it to him, as he's starting to sort of show some of that leadership that I think we were missing the first little bit of the season that we lost with sort of Anderson going and or even sort of Alessi kind of going as well. So he's kind of stepped up into that role as not quite field general, not quite there yet, but he's starting to sort of not quite sort of kind of dictate how the tempos run and sort of getting those killer passes in and making sure that he cleans up the passes and things like that. Sort of he's starting to create a very, very good partnership with Wharton. I think me and Joe were talking about with the FA Cup game, because that's the first time I think Wharton got a good run out and they were kind of switching. They would almost like interchange who was going to go back and defend, who was going forward, and it's almost like almost telepathic really when they were doing it. So yeah, just sort of the leadership role I think is definitely starting to come out of Will Hughes, sort of that experience which we have kind of really needed sort of to solidify in sort of, as it seems to be at the moment, in away games. I don't know why we can't do it at home. It's really weird that we're exactly the same team, exactly the same setup, but if we're at Selhurst Park, it's a different team, and I don't know why. It's really, really weird.
I'm sure there's something Glasner will be looking into. I just wanted to add very quickly, it's great for Hughes because in the times that he's been back to form, he's played this well in a number of games, but there's been others that have been, we've been singing praises of the others. Ismail Assar at some point, Mateta, and then when it's been a defensively solid performance, we talk about Gay and Lacroix, and these guys, but with that Fulham game, it was undoubtedly Will Hughes who was, the different factor for Palace. It just affected that game in every way, and I'm really glad for him because he's been due such a performance, for a while now.
And on that glowing review from Wale there, I think we'll take a very quick break. and thank our provider here at Zencastr. And after that, we're going to start talking about record breaking. So we'll be right back after this.
Here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform. Zencastr came out as the clear winner, with 4K video recording from your phone, AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs. It's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the description to learn more about Zencastr.
And we are back for the final part of the Daily Palace podcast, brought to you by the Global Sports Podcast Network. So we are now going to talk about the Palace record breaking of 4 consecutive away wins on the trot. 5 in total, 4 in the top flight and 1 in the cup, which has never been done in the entirety of Palace's history in the top flight. So, which I was surprised by. I would have thought we probably would have done it at least once, but if you're a long-time Palace fan, you know getting 2 wins on the trot is a minor miracle for us sometimes. So, but also to put that into perspective, that is 24 points away from home and 11 points at home. That's the complete and utter chalk and cheese form of home and away for us. So, Wale, do you think we can keep this away form going, especially when we've got Southampton, Man City, and Newcastle are our next 3 away fixtures? And I think there's probably also an FA Cup against Millwall in there somewhere. I'm not sure where it is yet. So, do you think we can carry on this form? Or is it probably Southampton and then we go sort of have an interesting game against City?
If there's anything we've learned this season, is anything's possible. We're here talking about a record-breaking away run for Palace. I'm not sure we envisage this, even though the team has been in good form. There is obviously something responsible for the away form. The boys tend to play more relaxed away from home, as we've seen in the last couple of games. They're able to soak up the pressure, focus in their defending, and eat on the break and create chances and take them. That we've seen in the away games, and I have to say that it's been 4 wins on a trot in the Premier League. I think it all started with that draw away at Bournemouth, who have been amazing at home this season. They obviously are having a record-breaking season of their own in Bournemouth. After the loss to Arsenal, there was that draw at Bournemouth, and then the wins started coming. And it felt really good because it was a lot of teams that beat Palace at the start of the season. And then Leicester, came to sell us and went 2-goal up, and then eventually the game ended in a draw. So the Palace got that victory against Leicester, got that victory against Fulham just recently as well. So, and then there was the United one, although you could feel anyone could maybe beat United at the moment. Even Southampton led them for 88 odd minutes in the game, but. With the run of games coming, as the league is getting into the home stretch, there's difficult games coming up for so many teams. Southampton, I would expect, with their form, as a game Palace should win, but they're also fighting for some pride left. It does look like their relegation will most likely be confirmed in a couple of weeks, but they're also fighting and seeing if they can get something and salvage something from their season and take the form at least into their year in the Championship, however things go for them. But that's a game Palace on this form should get some result. And Newcastle, they're not infallible. We've seen that. We saw City dismantle them completely. They, won against Nottingham Forest the other day, but I think they lost to Fulham or thereabouts some weeks ago as well. So we know that with this run of form, Palace can get a result. So I'm not putting it past Palace to get results in the Southampton, Newcastle, even against Manchester City. City are not the greatest at the moment, and they tend to even struggle more against the sides that you expect them to beat. So yes, I expect the away form to continue. I really hope that it can be translated to home form. I was saying to Joe last week that, or was it Alex? I can't remember, but maybe, just maybe, the pressure at home, maybe that's getting to the boys, because just as you said, it's the same set of players, the same idea, the same style of play, but for some reason they just tend to make the daft errors sometimes, like the penalty giveaway the other day, or someone just fluffing their lines, when they are just about to put the killer pass in. And all this especially happened at Selhurst. I know that Palace fans, just like every other group of fans in the league, are demanding, but for some reason, Palace just haven't been able to replicate that form. I hope they can go on a good run and get great results at home. I'm sure Palace fans will love if in the remaining games of the season, Palace win all their home games and get a couple of draws away. I'm sure they would give a lot to get home victories in the last couple of games, but speaking particularly about the away games, I wouldn't put it past Palace to get results even in the Newcastle and Man City away games.
Yeah, especially when the last game against City, I think we did 2-2, which was at the beginning of their kind of slump. And Newcastle, when we played them at home, it was 1-1, but they didn't have a shot on target. And you watch the highlights, we could have been 4 or 5-0 up very easily at home against them, but for some bizarre reason, we couldn't finish to save our lives. So I would probably fancy our bets against definitely Southampton. That just seems like almost a given at this point. But it could, you never know, as you were saying earlier. Southampton are playing for pride. I know Derby are definitely looking at that. They don't want that record taken away from them. That's the only thing they've got left, really, isn't it? That's their claim to fame. So they definitely they don't want Southampton going down with fewer points than them. But yeah, against City and against Newcastle, I think we probably should be able to get something. But City are still City. They can very easily just sort of turn around and just sort of get angry at us. But that's also being said, we have had some good days up at the Etihad, so we'll see what happens. But I would probably think we can get something out of at least 2 of them. Probably, yet again, probably get a draw out of Newcastle at the very least. I also just like the idea that we're now being taken seriously as an away team. Sort of like teams don't like us coming to their home ground, because we are not just going to sort of let them play. We're going to do it our style, and we're going to sort of force our will onto the opposition. So yeah, I do like that we're actually being taken seriously now. But as soon as it's a home game, it's like, oh yep, we'll write that one off, or we'll let that one go. We'll just ignore that one for a while.
It's going to be interesting for me, because I think Palace's last away game, in fact, the last game of the season, is away at Liverpool.
It's Liverpool. Yep, we could decide the title.
Well, I'm not really sure. At this rate, the title will be decided some weeks before the end of the season.
Probably, but there is a chance. There is a very small chance. Because Arsenal are going to start coming up that league now. Their February slump is over. They're going to start playing now. And on that, I think that's a decent place to finish.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Wale, for basically having a lovely conversation with us.
Always a pleasure, Dan. Cheers.
No worries. And before we go, just a gentle reminder that this podcast is part of the Global Sports Podcast Network, the only network bringing you exclusive daily news and views on your team, the Premier League, women's football and fantasy football. Just subscribe wherever you get your podcast and on the YouTube channel. Give us a like and make us your first listen every day. What am I doing? Until next time, goodbye.
Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.